Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastadon Creates podcast, episode 50. We've made it this far, which is kind of exciting. Before we jump into the episode today, I wanted to give you an idea of where else you can find me on the interwebs. You can find me on Instagram as Tori Schaffner. You can find me on the blog. Show notes are always posted there at lilwestie.wordpress.com. You can find me on Facebook. I'm just not as active there. Of course, I'm on Ravelry as lilwestie, Lilwestie, and of course, I am here on YouTube. Today is July 10th. It is a Saturday. Kind of a gloomy Saturday at that, but it's a little cooler, so no one's complaining here. So it's kind of nice. And yeah, it's the 50th episode. It's kind of crazy to think there were 50 episodes deep on this podcast right now, so that's kind of exciting. To be honest, it snuck up on me, so I didn't even think about doing something different. I just sat down to write my show notes and compilation and realized, oh hey, it's been 50 episodes, so time flies when you're having fun. But anyway, I do have some things to show. We'll start with knitting. I have spinning. I'm looking at my pile of stuff. I also have spinning today because Tour de Fleece. And yeah, let's jump into the knitting. We'll start with one you haven't seen before. I cast on, like I said I was going to, my pink velvet sweater. This is, I believe, by Andrea Mowry. Let me double check. Who is this by? Andrea Mowry. I'm correct. I keep my working patterns in a binder. But yeah, I cast it on, and this has been very, very fun. I've got several skeins of yarn attached to it right now, so this will be a slightly more in-depth endeavor. But this is the Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry. It's a top-down sweater with a color work yoke. And if I can get all of my colors detached enough to show you without losing my stitches, I have the beginnings of a colorwork yoke sweater. These two colors, I mean, aren't the highest contrast, but they're just me. They're me. It's lime green and turquoise. So right now, the pattern's not as easy to see on camera, especially with that, what's it called? The lovely gloomy lighting today, but once this is done, and once I'm a little further past the color work, once I'm actually past the color work section, it'll be easier to show the color work section. I'm actually only a few rows away from finishing the color work, and then it's just the turquoise color the rest of the way. Oops, I hit my desk. But yeah, this has been fun. I've never knit a color work sweater. And this isn't going to be a full colorwork sweater. This is just going to be the yoke part at the top. But it's really fun. When I start knitting this, I don't want to put it down. So I've been really enjoying this. A good blocking will obviously even out everything. And since this is my first colorwork yoke sweater, I'm not expecting it to be perfect. But in my opinion, it's looking pretty good. So I'm knitting this out of two colors. This is all Knit Picks, not Poseidon, Knit Picks Hawthorne Kettle Dye. This color is Poseidon, and then this color is Cattail. It's almost like a limey greeny yellow color. I don't know, it's a little more accurate. It's a little more yellow than it's pulling on the camera, I think. But yep, I'm knitting these two colors together. I'm alternating the turquoise as well, so that we don't have any weird striping when I get out of the color work section. But I am really enjoying this. This is really fun. I cast this on, I wound the yarn to cast this on the same day of my last episode after I finished recording. And then I tried casting it on that Sunday. I ripped it out twice, because I ripped it out the first time because I've never done the type of cast on they suggest. And then the second time I ripped it out because I realized I didn't start on smaller needles. And I had actually gotten past the cast on. So then I had to rip it out again, and then finally at the third time's the charm, I was able to get it correct to an extent. So we have the beginnings of a sweater. Let me see. So that is the first one. It's called Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry. In the pattern itself, they suggest using, for the contrasting color, I believe they suggest using a mohair, but obviously I'm not doing that. A, it's very expensive. B, I have no idea if I'm sensitive to it or not, so it's just simpler to not spend the extra money when I have no idea if I can even use it. So yay! That is my first work in progress. My second work in progress is actually back here. It is my granny stripe blanket, but I wanted to show because I caked up another magic cake of yarn again after the podcast last episode. I caked up another cake. It's a little messy, but this one officially has parts of my mini skeins that I purchased in here. Because obviously I don't have enough scraps anymore. I have some scraps left, but we're going to be moving more into current project scraps and then mini skeins for the rest of this blanket because I've kind of demolished my leftover stash. So might as well just show you quick since I did do a little bit, and the little bit that I did does include some of the yarn from the mini skeins that I ordered. So I actually did, I don't know, maybe only an inch, but I've already included some of, there's like a pink in here, there's a yellow in here, all from the new mini skeins at the very top. So it's kind of exciting. I've officially included mini skeins in this blanket for the first time ever, and I've actually never used mini skeins before, so this was even the first time I used them because I always thought they were dumb. But that's harsh. I always never understood why you would spend extra money for little skeins of yarn, but now I kind of get it. If you want a lot of colors, a lot of different colors, yes, it would be cheaper to buy full skeins, but it's not if you just want like one pack, because otherwise you'd be buying 400 yard skeins, like 4 of them, which is, you know, upwards, well, 4 to 5 is upwards of $100 if you get indie dyed yarn. And you can get the minis for a fraction of that in 4 colors if you just want a little bit. So I get it. I get it now. Because indie dye yarn is very expensive. And it's expensive for a reason. I'm not knocking it. But it's just not accessible to everyone. But I am very in love with this blanket. So I did put some work on here because it cooled down this week. And whenever it gets a little cooler lately, all I want to do is work on this blanket. So that is what I did. It's also a low brain activity needed project. So if I'm really tired after work and it's a little cooler, I can still put a few stitches on this and not feel like my brain's gonna explode. So that was my other work in progress. Not a whole lot to show because Tour de Fleece did start. Well, sirens again. There had to be a bad accident this morning because there were a lot. But anyway, hopefully everyone's okay. But Tour de France obviously started, so the bike race, and there is a spinning event that goes with it where you spin the same days that they ride their bikes. And I wasn't going to do it this year. I haven't done it for years. And then this year I kind of started, and it more or less just turned into me trying to spin more often. So I spun one full skein well, I spun and plied it in 3 days. It took me a couple days to get it off of the bobbins and then actually wash it, but it was spun and plied in 3 days. I apologize if you can hear the sirens. This is from the dyer Kumasi. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's a superwash merino. It's about 4 ounces and I got about 250 yards. This one didn't have a color name, but it looks like cotton candy, doesn't it? It looks like cotton candy to me. It's so bright and colorful. I love it. Now the colors were a little brighter, but there was a lot of white with it, so it kind of muted out a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I would say this is probably a DK weight. Maybe a sport, maybe a little lighter, but it's only 250 yards of a 2-ply. So it did come out a little thicker. It did come out a little fuzzier. But I actually really like it. It's very, very soft. It is so soft. Like, I just want to cuddle it because it's so soft. And it smells good because I use soap wash. But this looks really pretty. About 250 yards, a 2-ply yarn. Yeah, I really like it and I really enjoyed the spin, so I am very excited to hopefully spin more of hers. I have one more braid and I've kind of been stocking more braids on Etsy, so we'll see a fiber to get from her, but I love it. It's so good. It's so good. So this is my first skein. Then we'll move over to works in progress spinning. Then the next thing I spun was some fiber from Camelot Dye Works. This is the Rainforest colorway. And you'll notice this is actually already plied. I finished up the singles in 2 days again. Actually, did I do all the singles in one day? I did all the singles in one day. I was going to spin half of it one day and then put it away, and because I wasn't really feeling like doing anything. And then once I really got into spinning, I didn't want to stop. So I spun it up in 2 days. This one is a 60% superwash merino, 30% bamboo, 10% nylon, 4 ounces. This one isn't as even. It's not my most even work because I was watching TV and podcasts while I was spinning it, so it's not my most even work, but I think it'll be really pretty, and it is very soft, and I think it'll end up being about the same weight, DK. So I think my next spin I might try to spin thinner just to see what I can do, because it's been a while since I've spun something super thin. Although I've noticed that the bamboo content, I actually have the last one I spun in the same base from Camelot Dye Works with the Fate color. It kind of came out the same, and actually now that I look at it, it's like all my fiber is coming out the same right now. So maybe I should slow down on my next one and try to spin it a little thinner. Because I would say this one was maybe a little rushed too. I think I was caught up in the idea of spinning for Tour de Fleece, so I went a little faster. But at the same time, I really like it, and I'm looking forward to winding it off and soaking it so I have a finished skein. So hopefully I'll do that this weekend, so by the next episode you'll be able to see it. So yeah, those were my finished spinning and works in progress spinning off the wheel. And then I decided to pull out my drop spindle again. I haven't done as much of this because it's slower. It's more, if I'm using a drop spindle, it's more just because I want to enjoy the process, and also it's hard to do with midnight around. And there were a few days where I'm like, I totally could have spun at work instead of knitting and like participated in Tour de Fleece. So I started bringing my spinning to work, and it's actually probably the best decision I've made in a while, because I really get into it on my breaks and lunches, and my coworkers are really into it too, because one of my coworkers knits, so she's, you know, kind of interested anyway, and the other ones are just like, this is a thing that happens and they think it's cool, and I enjoy it. So I've been spinning, this is some Chameleon Colorworks Dye Works in Fiber Studio, 4 ounces of merino. The color is Ophelia. I actually got this from like a community art center in Houghton, or in Hancock, in the UP. They did a Fiberama sale with donated fiber to benefit the community art center. So I got the fiber there, and I'm spinning this on a Snyder spindle. It's the cherry spindle. So, and mine did have dragonfly cutoffs in the little Turkish spindle, but I've obviously spun quite a bit. So I've actually spun a lot since I last used this. This is the fiber. It's kind of like all falling apart, but you can kind of see the color. It's gray and it's like a deep blue, and then I'm in the turquoise part, which, or like the turquoisey greeny color, maybe like an oceany green. And that's my favorite part of this braid. So I'm all about spinning this right now. But I've actually gotten quite a ways. I've definitely gotten a little better at keeping my spinning consistent. And for a while I was spinning so thin it wasn't even like supporting the weight of the spindle, which, you know, that's going to be a problem. So I started spinning a tiny bit thicker, and it's definitely working a little better, especially as I add more fiber on here. I mean, at a certain point I'm going to have to unload this, but I don't think I need to just yet. It'll be a learning curve. I might have to soon, but yeah. I've been doing some drop spindling, and so that's been really enjoyable. I tried spinning at home a little bit, but Midnight, if she notices I'm using a drop spindle, obviously it's a little bit of a, looks like a toy to her, and I cannot fault her for it, because it's literally a spindle spinning in the air. I mean, what cat wouldn't want to go after it? So if the only time I bring this out at home is if she's taking a nap and she's just doesn't care, because sometimes she cares very much, and then I have to just put it away, because I'm not gonna fight that battle. That's just not fair to her. So spinning, doing that at work a bit. Other than that, I think I do want to start another spinning project. I haven't decided what I'm going to spin next. I'm actually running low on dyed fiber. Which is crazy to say. Now my nose is itchy from all the fiber, but I'm starting to run a little low on dyed fiber, and I'm also trying not to buy much right now, although I might buy some more fiber soon if I keep spinning at the rate that I'm spinning, because I do like to have a little bit of a stash of fiber, because I like to just randomly spin. Like, I like to just pick up spinning when I decide I want to pick it up, so we'll see. I do have a wheel, so that makes me want to make sure I'm working through my fiber. No, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing that I'm working through my fiber. That's actually a very good thing. And I really should start knitting with my hand spun. And I've actually, some of these skeins I think would be beautiful as the colorwork part of a colorwork sweater. So kind of dreaming up some options there. But yeah, spinning has been kind of taking a lot of my time, because, you know, just spinning one bobbin worth of singles takes a long time. And then if you divide it in half like I typically do, then you have 2 bobbins worth of singles, and then you ply them together. Oh, and also on this one, just a little bragging rights, I had the least amount of, this is probably the most even I've ever divided my fiber, and I just eyeballed it. I had maybe a half a yard left of fiber that I didn't end up plying it because it wasn't enough to worry about and fight. I was very proud of that. But yeah, so I've been doing a lot of spinning. Oh, let me see. Stash enhancements? None. I haven't bought any yarn. I mean, I guess technically you could call this a stash enhancement, but it went from fiber stash to yarn stash, so I don't know that it just kind of stayed neutral. It went from one project of availability to another. Non-knit loves. I actually have one, and it's a really random one. That the last time I was in Eagle River, my grandma used to have she had like an iced tea maker. It's a Mr. Coffee iced tea maker, iced tea brewer, and the concept is you're supposed to put a ton of ice in the pitcher, and then it brews the tea into the pitcher, and then you have instant iced tea. Except she used it for, I remember we used it nonstop for one summer, because this was when I was younger and I still had summers off of school. And I know we used it nonstop one summer because my mom and I love tea, and grandma loved tea, and everybody loves half and half lemonade and iced tea. So we lived off that. But you know, in more recent years, we haven't been able to get down there as often, and my dad doesn't drink tea, and he's down there a lot, and my uncle drinks tea, but a different type of tea. So it didn't, she just had it in a shelf, and she's like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll take it," thinking, you know, I'll try it, and you know, if it's annoying, I'll end up goodwilling it. She didn't care. She's just like, "You can use it. If you can't use it, you can goodwill it." So I went through and I started using it. I'm not getting rid of this thing. I am keeping it until it dies. I don't know that I'd necessarily replace it, because it is another, you know, appliance where you could just use the kettle like I had been using, but I really like it, because with the kettle I had to babysit the tea kettle, and then I had to pour it into a jar and brew the tea, and then I'd forget about it and it'd get super bitter, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm very used to drinking bitter tea, but then it would sit there and it was more involved. This, I can brew a pitcher of tea. It starts and stops on its own, so I can just walk away and forget about it and come back 3 hours later, and it's not overbrewed, it's not overheating or anything, it's just good to go, and I can be super lazy with it. So I've been really, really enjoying that. So that's kind of been one great and random non-knit love. But yeah, never in a million years thought I would use something like that, but I am very muchly loving it. Other than that, though, other than non-knit love, other than my iced tea maker, I should say, nothing's really stood out. We'll move into life lately. Oh, once again, it's been hot. Very hot. The heat broke Tuesday, finally, because Monday we went shopping, because I had Monday off, and then when my husband got home from work, we went shopping, we did an Aldi's run, and I was just drenched. Even though we were in and out of AC, I was just drenched by the time we got our groceries in and everything. It was in the 90s. It was horrible. But the heat finally broke Tuesday, And it's kind of been consistently in the 70s this week, which has been an amazing break. Actually, Tuesday, I think it was like in the 60s is the highest it got. So that was absolutely amazing. It was just a much needed break, especially with our AC unit doing its thing. Update on that. It came out again this week, and apparently there's a leak somewhere, and they couldn't find the leak, and they didn't have the stuff to find the leak. So because of how late they came, they couldn't do anything about it. And they made it clear that they're not going to come back out again until they have another run in our area, which means we don't know when our AC is going to get fixed. So, yay. And also super annoying. But thankfully we have that small portable AC unit for when it gets really hot, so that we can at least sleep, because yay. AC is great. Anyway, with that, what else have I been doing? We had a fiasco where apparently Midnight tried to get on my plant shelf for the first time. And I don't know that she'll try it again. Well, actually, I know how she got up there, and that temptation is gone. But, I don't know that she'll try it again, because she knocked over my aloe plant, which was very tippy and very huge in a large pot, and shattered the pot. She's okay. She's fine. Justin came home to a mess. He picked it up, so thank you to him for that. He had a lot of vacuuming and stuff to do. And then he put the plant, the plant seems fine, in a box with like what was left of the pot. So I had some really big pots left, and I replanted. Technically this aloe needed to be divided anyway. There were 3 plants in there at this point. So it needed to be done. So I divided them up. It turns out I didn't have the right pots for it. So the 2 larger ones are still in the same pot, but I separated them out so they'd have a little more space. And this pot's a lot bigger. So this plant's going to get huge. And actually, I don't know if I'll divide them out at this point. I might still divide the smaller one out from the big pot, but I don't know, because they're kind of filling it out nicely, and I'm going to have to divide them eventually, but I don't want them to get that huge, but we'll see. And then there was one really small one that was growing up that kind of got crushed under the other ones, and I put that in another pot, a smaller pot that I did have. I don't know if that one will make it, because it lost a bunch of its leaves in the process, but that's okay because I have 2 huge ones. I don't know if that smaller one will make it. We will see. But it's in the pot, and it seems to be doing okay. Which is highly ironic, because this aloe plant was a tiny, tiny little limp, sad aloe plant that needed some love that I got from a store when I used to work at Econo. I got from the store. I paid like $1 for it because it needed love, and now it's just like huge and reproducing. So clearly a little TLC on a plant does help sometimes. But other than that, yeah, so I ended up buying more pots and more potting soil, because I'm going to have to do a little project. But other than that, it's been kind of chill. Like I said, I wasn't doing a whole lot of knitting and spinning those really hot days, although I should have just gone in the bedroom and turned the AC on and called it good. And I didn't. So we'll file that away for later in the summer. But for now, lots of spinning has been done, lots of knitting, and I've just been chatting your ear off, so I think at this point I should let you guys go. So with that, just a reminder, you can find me on Instagram as Tori Schaffner. You can find me on Ravelry as lilwestie. Show notes are always on the blog at woolymastodon.wordpress.com, and then you can also find me on Facebook. I'm just not as active there. And of course, I am here on YouTube. If you liked the video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends so we can build this little community on the interwebs. And with that, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye!